The Politics podcast is brought to you, as always, by everybody who supports us at patreon.com/JURY. This is where you not only get my one mic show, Jury, but you also get the Politics episodes. It's all in one Patreon. I'm doing so many things for you guys, and all you got to do is kick in whatever you want. Here's the deal. If you're up over $3 a week, what you get are bonus episodes, including headline episodes on Monday and Friday. And if you've been keeping up with the news, that means there's a lot of bonus stuff to talk about. It's been a very eventful time in our American history. On top of that, I gave an extra episode on Wednesday because I wasn't going to be able to record on Wednesday. That was all about Donald Trump's tweets yesterday about transgender in the military. So if you want to be a real swell person, get your own RSS feed and enjoy Politics, and Jury. Head on over there right now. Patreon.com/JURY. And buy Action News. Folks, you only got to listen to me hawk this 2 more times on this show. We are looking to get to 1,000 backers. 1,000 backers is our goal. We are going to do a big old stream next week to bring this baby to a close. We only got 6 days left on it, but if you want Action News in your life, now is the time to do it. We are super proud of how it's done so far. We should have a bunch of a video coming out from the Daily Dot today or tomorrow highlighting how it's played and just showing the game in action. But go ahead on over to actionnewsgame.com or just go on over to Kickstarter and say, I'm looking for Action News in your search bar, and you will find it. 6 days to go. We are on the hunt for 1,000 backers. We're at 883 as I record this right now. Share it if you already did it, or back it if you haven't. Thank you guys so much. But enough of talking about how we do the show. What do you say we just do the damn thing?
Politics.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Politics Prime Show. We are primed and ready to do the show. Hi, I'm Justin Robert Young, back in Oakland, California, for the first time since yesterday's episode that I published for free. So I guess I've been in Oakland before. But this is the first time that we're doing the big show since I spent my week in Texas promoting Action News. I can't hawk it enough. I'm sorry. Y'all only got like 2 more shows of it. And then I swear you'll only hear me talk about it every once in a while, whenever we have something new. I will give you guys a breather, but for right now, I have to saturate you in the fact that actionnewsgame.com is where you can back this Kickstarter. Please post about it. Please let everybody know. Tell your friends, tell your mom, tell your sister, tell your dad, tell your dog. Okay. Daniel J. Newman says, I'm really only here for the Action News ads. Well, then I hate to disappoint you, but we do have to get into some politics right now. I did do a bonus episode yesterday, and that was because I woke up, and despite the fact that I had made the decision to delay the episode until Thursday, I was kind of unnerved by the fact that Donald Trump tweeted a real cliffhanger of a tweet where he said that after consulting with his generals, he had made a decision on not allowing ... Now, when you're consulting with your generals, that's a big, heavy thing, right? You should probably not, if you're like, yo, I talked to my chef, and now I am cutting out ... Like, that's whatever, man. Okay, so maybe now you're not going to eat some KFC. But instead, he didn't start World War III. Good news. I think we can all agree. Good news. It's not like we're not going to allow North Korea to start effing with us and we're launching the missiles right now. So that's good news. Not so good news. He tweeted that they were no longer going to be allowing transgender soldiers in the military, citing the cost, and that the military should be focused on decisive victory and not the cost and confusion of a transgender soldier. So, we went over that in the last episode. I did a whole thing on it. We don't need to rehash it too much. Let's focus on going forward, which includes the fact that people have to actually deal with what he said. So, about that whole transgender thing, this is going to be a repeat theme of this show. About the whole transgender thing. The Joint Chiefs said today, this according to an article in Politico, no modifications to transgender policy from Trump tweet. Brian Bender and Jacqueline Klimas wrote this article. There will be no modifications to the military's transgender policy as a result of President Donald Trump's declared ban on transgendered men and women on Twitter, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs said in a message to top military officers on Thursday, the latest sign of disarray following the commander-in-chief's abrupt announcement. Marine General Joe Dunford also wrote in the message, which was sent to the chiefs of the military branches and senior enlisted leaders, that the military will continue to treat all of our personnel with respect. Quote, I know there are questions about yesterday's announcement on the transgender policy by the president, Dunford wrote in the internal communication, a copy of which was provided to Politico. Leaks! There will be no modifications to the current policy until the president's direction has been received by the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary has issued implementation guidance. In the meantime, we will continue to treat all of our personnel with respect and, as importantly, given the current fight and the challenge we face, we all remain focused on accomplishing our assigned mission. So, this is not them defying the president, right? It certainly is an explanation of, not an explanation, a example of how out of pocket Donald Trump tends to be, specifically with his Twitter account. This does not seem to be something that was organized. In fact, normally when presidents say something, considering that the Resolute desk is kind of the bully pulpit of the world, things are kind of done, you know? Like, there's a reason why we have an entire reporting apparatus around the White House, around the American government. Because, as is metaphorically said, America is the 800-pound elephant in the bed. Wherever the 800-pound elephant in the bed rolls, everybody else has to deal with it, like it or not. So if Donald Trump is tweeting things that haven't happened yet, I don't know exactly how much it serves to do. Specifically, as we went over in yesterday's episode, if the point of it is to distract from something, the two things that you'd want to distract from were the fact that he's hating on Jeff Sessions and theoretically might be moving toward a position where he is going to fire Jeff Sessions and appoint somebody else who will fire Special Investigator Mueller, who is currently looking into Donald Trump's connections with Russia during the campaign. That's a bad thing for him. You can understand him wanting to distract from it. But then he tweets about that right afterward. So, okay. But then the other thing that he would tweet about that is going on right now is the healthcare repeal, which his party actually kind of didn't fully press their stiletto heels into their own dicks on the day before. So why would you want to obfuscate something that by the slimmest of possible margins, the Republican Congress didn't bungle fuck? Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Nobody knows. It's all a hall of mirrors. You know, I don't... This might be 17th dimensional chess, or it might be a deep game of chess played by two blindfolded children who don't know how to play chess. We do know that there's been no official statement on it. There's been no official order given to the Secretary of Defense, and there has been no implementation passed out to the armed forces. Now, I have never joined the armed forces. I have never been part of the armed forces. I've known people. I've known good friends. There's one thing that I could take a wild guess is very important, if not the most important, to the American armed forces. It is rules and following rules. Seems to be the two big things. Basic training is in many ways just deprogramming to reprogram that you are going to unlearn your rules. You are going to learn their rules. They do not like ambiguity. They don't like space between what is ordered and what is acted on. They want that as tight as possible. That is a good military, as I understand it. By the way, we got a ton of emails on this. I picked the best three. We're going to read them. But they are from transgender folks, veterans, active duty soldiers, and other folks with great points of view on this. So I can't imagine that even if the generals are dead set on getting transgender folks out of the military, that they enjoy this implementation of it. Now, I'm sure some enjoy cutting through red tape, right? And instead of it going from one desk to another desk and having everybody play politics on it, you just have the president say it. Now it's out there, and the question is how you will implement it as opposed to whether or not we should implement it. But this does not seem like the kind of military precision that would normally come along with something that would have the kind of sweeping effect like this does. Just going to toss that one out there. Doesn't seem like it to me. So, that's that. That's out there in the wild. We'll wait and see. And again, we're going to get to more discussion about this in the emails. But I told you that this is kind of a theme, right? So what about? So by the way, what about health care? You know, that was a huge thing. Donald Trump again tweeted out that this is the time we have to unite and take care of the failing Obamacare, yada yada yada. So John McCain dramatically comes back to the Senate after being diagnosed with aggressive brain cancer, reportedly. He's diagnosed with brain cancer, but how aggressive it is up to reports. Gives a big speech about how being in the Senate is one of the greatest honors of his life, and votes to continue the debate on health care. And again, that passed by the slimmest of possible margins. 50-50 with Mike Pence breaking the tie. Could not get closer. If John McCain couldn't make it to Washington, this would not have passed. By the way, fun little sub note. Because I pay attention to both ends of the political spectrum, the far, far, far left and the far, 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 far right, there is one thing that, man, these two groups have a lot in common about, and that is fucking hating John McCain. John McCain is so unliked by the far left and the far right. And it's personal. It is just like angry. It is a a vile, venomous hate from both sides of the aisle. And like, you know, I don't know. I guess maybe because he's famous. Is that it? And you can, I'm not saying that John McCain is above criticism. Criticize John McCain. I mean, I don't think he's a perfect person. But I guess I just don't see, like, he's got one center, and that's it. He's only got people that are like, you know, he seems like somebody that you know will take things as they come and make fairly just decisions. I don't agree with all of them, but he seems like a nice enough guy, and he was a POW. Other than that, on the far right, he's Cuck McCain. He's a globalist scum. He's a piece of vile garbage who's done nothing but sell out the president. He's exactly everything about the swamp that needs to be drained. And on the on the left, he's just this cock tease, empty suit piece of monkey trash who flirts with these elements of decency only to, with a little to no sack, back away at every possible important turn. That for every moment that he seems like he's a decent person, and he is more awful for flashing signs of decency because it is politically calculating that he is doing that to appeal to a broader base, only to sell out every cause at the last minute. And also, you know, fuck him for getting out of bed for continuing that debate on healthcare, which, you know, everyone's entitled to their opinion. I don't think anybody is wrong for having an opinion. There's only so much that I would go forward on attacking John McCain on that issue for this reason. Number one, he's part of a body of people that have been screaming and yelling about repealing and replacing Obamacare for 7 fucking years. He would be a tremendous hypocrite if he did not at least further that cause for the people that have continued to vote for him. He has also come out and said in a Medium article that he's not going to vote for the bill if it's not changed substantially. So, you know, I think it's a lot easier to be kind of on the outside and make that decision than it is to be on the inside. And everyone's going to root their own heart, and everyone's going to root their own mind. And you know, John McCain, indeed, in his hand, held the ability to kill the Obamacare repeal. He could have voted no. He could have said, hey, man, I got brain cancer. I'm not leaving Arizona. But he didn't. He came in and he voted, and people hated him. Both ways. I don't know what it is, man. People fucking hate John McCain. But let's talk about healthcare, right? This again from Politico. We got 2 Politico stories today. The Republicans' incredible shrinking Obamacare repeal. This written by John Breshenin, Burgess Everett, Jennifer Haberkorn, and Segmin Kim. Segmin Kim? Yeah, we'll go with it. Senate Republicans' once ambitious Obamacare repeal effort is shriveling even further, with growing doubts on whether the GOP can fully eliminate the health law's coverage mandates or any of its taxes. The GOP's skinny repeal bill, in other words, is getting even skinnier. Sources on and off Capitol Hill on Thursday have described a new outline of the bill that would repeal the law's individual mandate and partially delay its employer mandate. It would also defund Planned Parenthood and give states more flexibility to opt out of Obamacare regulations. The law's prevention and public funds is also expected to be sharply cut, but there are growing concerns among Republicans that budget requirements will prevent the Senate from repealing any of Obamacare's taxes. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell emailed GOP senators on Thursday outlining the current provision in the skinny repeal. The message noted that the employer mandate will be repealed for a minimum of 6 years. According to a source who viewed the email, another GOP source says the employer mandate will be halted for 8 years. We will end on this. A quote from Senate Majority Whip John Cornyn of Texas. The one thing that unifies our conference is the repeal of the individual mandate and the employer mandate. Those are the two of Obamacare's biggest overreaches and essential to Obamacare's functioning. So basically, he's saying, don't worry, everybody who hates Obamacare. Don't worry, this anger in America that has swept the Republicans to power in this current incarnation. What we really wanted to do was just take out these two elements of Obamacare. None of the taxes and nothing else. It's amazing how it's funny. JSC315. This is something that I said on the morning stream. The funny thing about healthcare, in my opinion, is that it is obviously something that is intensely touchy. And by the way, if the Republicans can't repeal these taxes are here forever. They're never going to go away. Entitlements like this don't go away unless they are either prevented or taken away almost immediately on the first change of power. That's just how it works. Once people have big things and you can start putting results to those programs, it becomes very hard to take away unless they become obsolete. But I've always felt with healthcare that right now the solution is either keep the ACA the way it is, which I don't think is necessarily the best program. I don't think is particularly right-headed. And it has done damage to raising premiums for people that wouldn't otherwise have risen premiums. But I also don't think that the best idea is to hack it up into a bunch of pieces and pretend that it's not there. That doesn't seem to me to be the best solution either. And yet, we have to have this A-B binary situation. It's like I said on the morning stream. You are in an office of 20. There are 4 people on one side that want pizza for lunch. There are 4 people on the other side that want subs. And you're like, well, I would like shawarma. Maybe I would like Chinese. Maybe I would like a salad. No, it's pizza or subs. All right, but can we think about? No, pizza or subs, and that's it. And by the way, the sub people think that if you want pizza, you're a piece of flying dog shit. And if you want if you want subs to the pizza people, you're an absolute disgrace. I think that there's a lot of ways that we can fix our healthcare, and I don't think that either of these are necessarily the biggest solutions. And yet there's the solutions that are politically polarized, so this is what we talk about. And that's fine. But when everybody, sometimes I get criticized for not being too impassioned enough, that I'm not enough of an advocate. But this is why. Because this isn't my horse. I don't want pizza or subs. At all. I don't want either of them. So my job is to call the game. That's it. I don't know why this got so defensive. I don't know. Whatever. Let's move on. Yeah, and by the way, as J.C. Calhoun says, what about the death panels? When are we going to get a death panel to decide who is indeed in charge of pizza or subs? Hey guys, I got a headline from the future. Headline from the future. Are you ready? Because this is going to happen 100%. I'm giving you 100% probability that this happens. Okay? Are you guys ready? Are you ready for this? Here we go. Put it on the board. 100% this is going to happen. We're going to read this headline as close as possible. In fact, get ready to clip this, what I'm about to say, out so you can tweet it back to me with the headline when it comes out, okay? Right now it is July 27th, 2017 on the Politicsx show. Here is the headline. I wrote it down so I could say it. Trump looks to move on from Scaramouche, citing that he is getting too much attention. Just take that one down. Take it to the bank. This is going to happen, and I believe it will probably happen before the end of the year. Scaramouche is getting way too much attention for Donald Trump to like. There is absolutely no way that this guy can be out here garnering this level of headlines and not eventually rub Donald Trump the wrong way. The reason why I began to think this morning is because of this failing New York Times article. Scaramouche hints Priebus was behind a leak, but there was no leak. Stoic Squirrel says, yeah, but Scaramouche is a good distraction. So is Spicer, dog. So was Spicer. Spicer was a good distraction, too. Guess what he got? Too much attention. Trump didn't like the way he was handling things. He fired his ass. So this is what happens this morning. The internal rivalries of the White House spilled out into stark public view on Thursday morning as President Trump's new communications director called out his chief of staff on live television, suggesting that he may be a leaker, all over a leak that was not actually a leak. Can I also say this? I don't like the way that this is written. I don't like how this headline was written, and I don't like how this lead is written. This is where you get into trouble with editorial voice. Because, like, this is just way too snarky. All over a leak that wasn't actually a leak. It's like, okay, well now you're making assumptions on colloquial speech. I don't like it. I would like that to be a little bit more cut and dry. But whatever. That's me being a bitch. So, Anthony Scaramucci, who was installed as the White House communications director last week over the objection of Chief of Staff Reince Priebus, telephoned into CNN and said the two men were at odds. They said my name in the streets? Mr. Scaramucci compared them to Cain and Abel, the biblical sons of Adam and Eve, whose conflict led to Cain murdering Abel. He challenged Mr. Priebus to deny being a leaker. Quote, this is on national television. This is on CNN. We've had odds, we've had differences, Mr. Scaramucci said. When I said that we were brothers from the podium, it's because we're rough on each other. Some brothers are like Cain and Abel. Other brothers can fight with each other and not get along. Or can fight with each other and get along. I don't know if this is repairable or not. That'll be up to the president. The call into CNN came after Mr. Scaramucci seemed to suggest on Twitter overnight that Mr. Priebus might have had something to do with a quote-unquote leak of Mr. Scaramucci's financial disclosure form to Politico. Mr. Scaramouche said the leak, quote unquote, was a felony, quote unquote, and that he would be contacting the FBI and the Justice Department to seek an investigation. He then included Mr. Priebus's Twitter handle, which several officials in the White House interpreted to mean that he suspected the chief of staff. Asked by text whether or not that was true, Mr. Scaramouche did not respond. Now, Scaramouche did go on Fox and Friends and said initially, also then tweeted and said, no. What I meant was everybody in the government is committed to ending the leaking. But then goes on CNN and torches Priebus and says, oh, yeah, no, but for real, fuck Priebus. So here we go. This is further on the New York Times story. By morning, however, it was clear that the leak was no leak. Lorraine Wollard at Politico's reporter on the story explained that she simply requested the financial disclosure form through normal channels and was provided it by a government agency, as required by federal law. Mr. Scaramouche deleted his Twitter message, but posted a new one referring to the story by the news outlet Axios, suggesting that he wanted Mr. Priebus investigated. So that's where this tweet that I'm referring to. This was what his tweet was, taking Axios to task. Wrong. The tweet was public notice to leakers that all senior administration officials are helping to end illegal leaks. But then he goes and torches them. So what the fuck? I mean, listen, I'm telling you, Scaramouche he's getting too loud. He's getting too loud. He's too loud already. I think we can see how things work now with the Trump administration. Number one, foresight is out the window. Like, there's no pre-planning. I think we can all understand that. Because if there was pre-planning, a lot of this shit would have went different, right? The travel ban would have went different. The entire Spicer thing would have went different. Healthcare would have went different. You know, I got into a little bit of trouble because on the morning stream also I made mention about the way that Obamacare was passed. And people really, really, really got at my butt about me saying that a lot of Obamacare was created in secret, despite the fact that they did hold hearings and they did a little roadshow for it. Ultimately, the things that were going to be the major points were just going to be the major points no matter what. It was just a matter of trying to get some kind of Republican sign-on, even if it was just for procedural shit on it. The bill was the bill was the bill was the bill. And that was going to be the bill no matter what. But one thing that I can say for sure, for absolute certain, is that Obamacare, the ACA, was crafted and shepherded through Congress by the White House. It was a big priority that they put a lot of time and effort into. I cannot say the same thing about whatever is happening now. And I don't think anybody can say that. Not when Donald Trump is tweeting shit as if he's actually like still on his couch. You know, this is what he tweets today. Come on, Republican senators, you can do it on healthcare. After 7 years, this is your chance. Don't let the American people down. I mean, like, I know he's a business guy and he likes to delegate, but you know, you have a lot of power in it, right? You know that, like, you have a huge part to play in getting through an Obamacare repeal? Has that been explained? Like, what does this even mean? What, I don't, like, this befuddles me. I really, really, really don't understand, what you can possibly do with something like that. If you're one of the senators, the Republican senators, like, okay, well, how about you start strong-arming these other people that aren't on, right? How about you explain what your priority is? Because here's another part of this. If he's hands-off, then if something gets passed that people don't like, that starts getting criticized, he's going to burn the senators that passed it. Here's another one. I'm not as sure as Scaramouche getting fired on this one, but here's something else that I will put into the likelihood of possibilities that will happen. They will pass a skinny repeal. It will be criticized, and he will burn the senators for passing a skinny repeal and not having enough stones to pass a bigger one. If that happens, if this, then that. If they pass something that is milquetoast, it will get criticized. He will hammer them. Not immediately, not this year even maybe, but next year for sure. So if that's the level of support you're getting, what do you do? What do you do if you're one of these senators? Clown Baby 123 in the Twitch says he needs to brag about something other than the sex boat to the Boy Scouts. Man, we didn't even talk about that, huh? That kind of came and went in between our little window. But yeah, Donald Trump out there to the Boy Scout Jamboree. He talked about an old friend, sold his business, bought a boat, did some real shit on that boat. Real stuff. Got some work in on that boat. Then tried to come back to business. Women weak in legs, dog. Couldn't hack it. But still a nice guy. I don't know. I got this other story here on Reince, but I think we're running a little long if we want to get to these emails. That's fine. Yeah. Scaramouche hates Reince Priebus. Hey, I got an idea. You know, I'll tell you what. If Scaramouche and Reince hate each other so much, I got a way that they can bond. I do. You know, they can go on down to Virginia. You know, outside of D.C. a little bit, right? Just get your head clear. Head on down to Richmond, right? Head on down to old VA, old Virginia. You know, just go ahead and just say, hey guys, let's hit the reset button. What do you say we go out? Let's get a Lincoln Town car. Let's get a driver. Yeah, dude. We'll get a hotel. We're gonna get like $150. We're gonna break it up at a 7-Eleven because this, ladies and gentlemen, is a.
Get on the floor if you got that booty.
Dance, 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 dance. This is a pole dance for the Virginia governor's race. A Monmouth poll taken from July 20th to July 23rd. 502 likely voters sampled, a margin of error of 4.3%. It is against former GOP chairman Ed Gillespie, who has trailed in the polls, versus Northam. This also comes as the DNC has made it a priority to get the governor's mansions back in check. Nordholm's been running 8 to 11 points ahead. But ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you to this race, which now has co-headliners. Welcome them both to the stage at the same time, because with 44%, we have a tie. Look at them up there together. They're neck and neck. Oh, yeah. Look at them go at it. What an unexpected turn of events. It seems like Gillespie is coming from behind. That one got a little gross. Shit gets grody in these V8 clubs, man. I'm just letting you know. This is kind of surprising and really bad news for the Democrats because they did make a big issue. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, I believe. Oh, no. Terry McAuliffe. Terry McAuliffe and Nancy Pelosi are out here in these streets looking for money. And they're making the point that, hey, look, you know, I know that everybody is really, really excited to donating to anything for which might bring forward the wave. But let's also understand that governors' mansions are very important. Traditionally, governors' mansions give you two things. Number one, a better hold on statewide policies, obviously. And number two, they build up your bench for presidential elections. In general, people like to elect governors, usually. Obviously, not recently, whatever. But historically, governors are a good breeding ground for presidential candidates. And right now, you don't got a ton of really popular, competent, presidential-ready Democratic candidates in general, let alone governors. Now, Ed Gillespie has a ton of baggage. He should not be running this close. He has not run this close. This is a statistical outlier now, but it is not good news to come while the DNC has hat in hand looking for that cash. Also, one more note. Before we get into our email, and that is that we do have some campaign chaos book club stuff coming up. We're going to get into that Trump Manafort one. I got to get the word out on that. But also announced, Hillary is writing her own book. It's going to come out. And guess who she's going to blame? Guess who she's going to blame? Could it be Hillary? Oh, no. Oh, no. Could it be her campaign? No. No. It's Comey. It's Russia. It's Comey and Russia all day, every day. That's why she lost the election to somebody who was polling at 40% in popularity. Ooh. Oh, I'm excited. And I had to give a song to that one because there's going to be so much dancing in that book. It's just going to be a regular foxtrot. Trying to figure out, with a dollop of misogyny. And for the record, I think misogyny is probably the closest thing of those three that really cost her the election. The book is called Mistakes Were Made But Not By Me, says Space NML. I am thrilled to read that book because two things. Number one, I'm just excited to see how far. I mean, obviously the Clintons are obsessed with legacy. This is going to be her final word on her political legacy. She's going to go down with the ship. But I'm curious to see how bad she backdoors Podesta and Mook, because she's going to backdoor Podesta and Mook. That's for sure. She is going to get him. It's a question about how hard she is going to kill him. So we'll get into that. I'm sure there'll be a lot more where that came from. Let's get into your emails. You can write us theyoungamerican@gmail.com. Again, theyoungamerican@gmail.com. Mike writes, since you've been saying that you don't think Trump actually did anything and will only get taken down for obstruction of justice, I was wondering if now that the news has come out that he has asked about pardoning himself, if you're starting to change your mind. Mike, we're better than this. On the Politics show, we ask for just a little bit more listening. I need you to listen. I have never said that Donald Trump did nothing wrong. I have said that the funniest solution is that he goes down for obstruction of justice when he did nothing wrong. That's the only thing I have said with any kind of definitive point of view, is that that would be the funniest way for all of this to end. And I have not changed my mind on that. That would still be the funniest way for this to end. Jordan writes, I love PX3. Really great show. As a one-mic show, it's awesome, and I think you should continue to do it. But I think you should also consider having Brian Brushwood, who was on last week, as a semi-regular co-host. It was nice to have more of a politics layman on the show, and it seemed to take the conversation into some interesting directions. The chat room makes your show really interesting, but sometimes it kind of derails or cuts short the topic that you're on. I loved having Brian on, and I do want to... Now that we're kind of coming out of this Kickstarter thing, I'm going to do a big kind of deep dive on all my podcasts and reformatting and figuring stuff out. But one of the things that I really do want to do a little bit more often is to bring on guests on this show, because I do think that it adds something. And, listen, every once in a while, you guys can do to hear another voice than just my droning, monotonous nonsense. Derek writes, and this is a great, only on Politics will you get this. In Comedy dell'arte, the traditional clown is Scaramouche. So now, as a speaker for the Looney Tune Washington cast of characters, we have our speaker, Scaramouche. How fitting. I really feel like I should be sipping on a snifter of brandy. As you all well know, in Commedia dell'arte, the traditional clown is Scaramouche. And now, in Washington, we have our own speaker, Scaramouche. How fitting. All right, let's get into the main event of our emails. Derek, in the Army, writes, in response to your most recent... well, actually, no, you want to know what? Let me read this after. Yeah, because this is, I think, that was the biggest point. Let's go ahead and start with just a clarification on my last podcast about. I made the. Well, here, I'll just read this. Ninja Steve writes, Ninja Steve here. I just so happen to be a prior service military, Air Force, and I've worked at the DoD Missile and Aviation technical writer ever since I left the service. Basically, I write instructions for operating and maintaining missiles and aircraft. So I'm quite familiar with aviation and drone technology trends in the military. I can't go into too much detail, but I can say your image where a guy who is transitioning can sit in a warehouse in New Jersey and control a drone is a little flawed. Drone pilots aren't usually extremely far away from where the drone is deployed. Yes, they can be controlled remotely, but it's not overseas like a sci-fi movie. That means that the drone pilot usually has to be deployed to the general area where the drone is operating. I won't give you an exact radius of operation, but let's just say the guy can't be in New Jersey if the drone's in Afghanistan. Maybe the tech will improve in the future, and maybe there are secret squirrel things in the works that I don't even know about. But for all intents and purposes, the warehouse in New Jersey image is inaccurate at the moment. All that being said, I don't see any reason that would prevent a transgender person from serving in the military, even in a forward deployment unit. I'm sure whatever hormone replacement drugs that he or she would need can be supplied in the same manner as other military members' regular medications. However, I do know that diabetic people can't be deployed because insulin must be refrigerated. Refrigeration prevents a logistical problem in forward deployment locations. I can see that being a similar issue with hormone replacement therapy if, and only if, the medication does need to be kept cold. Regardless, people are allowed in the military all the times with waivers for medical conditions that don't allow them to deploy, so the medical prohibition argument is really moot anyway. I think the real issue is that military people, including generals, tend to skew a lot more socially conservative. And they just have trouble fitting social acceptance programs into their worldviews. I believe that maybe this is something our founding fathers understood, and it's one of the reasons that they wanted civilians to be in charge of the military. Old generals have a tendency to be resistant to change, and we need somebody on the outside to force them out of their habits. Because Trump is relying on generals' recommendations on the issues, I don't think he truly understands what it means to be commander-in-chief. I also don't think he understands a lot of other things, but that's a different conversation. Anyway, little long, but here's the TLDR. Troops still have to deploy to operate drones. Medical prohibitions are moot because of waivers, and generals are just old and don't like change. So as he points out, I made the point that I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around why the totality of the military needs to be free, quote unquote, of transgender soldiers, because it seems to me that there's a wealth of positions that, when we think of the military, I think as civilians, we think of infantry people, right? We think of war movies. We think of gunfire. But, you spend enough time with people in the military, there's a trillion different jobs that you can have. And sure, you have to do basic training, but I don't quite see where that is an issue. But I made as an example, I made the point that, if somebody's controlling a drone in New Jersey, so yeah, it's not New Jersey. It's, some operating base in Qatar or something. Let's go ahead to veteran Erin. Erin wrote in and said she is a military veteran and has since transitioned. So she was in the military, left the military, then transitioned. Erin writes, she asked if I had any questions. I basically asked her, number one, would you, here, let me find exactly what I said, just so I don't mischaracterize what she said to me. So she wrote and said, I love to chat. I said, awesome. Thank you for writing in. Two things. As somebody who served and then transitioned, how different or difficult would it have been to do at the same time? And what were the burdens if you were continuing to live your life now while you were in active service? So basically, would you have considered transitioning while you were in the military? And if not, why not? Or I guess he didn't, so why didn't you? And if she were to enlist again, what would be some of the burdens? So she writes, I honestly would have been terrified to do it at the same time. In fact, being in the military prevented me from coming out. I've always known that I was trans, even though I couldn't admit it to myself or accept it. Part of my motivation for enlisting was to quiet the woman in me and make me feel more masculine. My basic training was at Fort Knox, which is a male-only training facility, as opposed to Fort Jackson, which is co-ed. And let me tell you, they really dialed the masculinity up to 11. It actually made me feel worse, since it drew a starker difference between me and the guys, quote unquote. The level of casual homophobia and sexism, both from new soldiers and the cadre, the training staff, was suffocating. And this was 2007. My AIT, Advanced Individual Training After Basic, where they teach you the selected Army job, was co-ed. But it was like being in a college dorm, with a fraternity and a sorority coexisting in the same building with overbearing monitors. Gender identity is very binary in the military, more so than in the civilian world. People with lady parts were girls, and were expected to act and identify as girls. Vice versa were people with dude parts. While you're transitioning, there's a long stretch of time where you are, for the lack of a better word, in between. In a perfect world, you could change your gender the moment you realized what you were and people would accept it. But while you're starting on hormones, which are cheap, by the way, retraining your voice and body language, if that's what you want, and exploring what confirming your gender identity means to you, you don't fit into the Army's slot A or slot B. You're other, and the military doesn't like other. They like conformity and uniformity. I hope that answers your questions. I know I meandered a lot, but let me know if I can be a further help. I'll definitely follow up with Erin, but I thought that was a tremendously frank and interesting way to put it. Largely because, there are different issues. that are at play here. And to hear from somebody who has been through it and to explain it, I think was very, very edifying, because nothing's wrong, but on the outside, for a lot of folks, this is a culture issue. This is about the larger movement of acceptance of transgender people in America and the world, right? But for Aaron, it's a real world issue, which is, are you high that I would want to transition in the middle of that boiling cauldron where I would effectively, it sounds like a prison, right? Or it's like, yes, I would like to not be a part of the white supremacists or the Nation of Islam, but unless I'm going to join the Latin Kings, I'm not really going to have a choice. I got to go in bucket A or bucket B. So no, I would not like to be in the middle. But I'm going to continue to dialogue with Erin, and hopefully if anybody has any questions, then go ahead and email me and I'll forward them on to her. Here's one of the most interesting things, though, to me, in response to the military culture. This is Derek, and Derek is active duty in the military, Army specifically. In response to your most recent PX3 podcast, I feel like I'm uniquely qualified to weigh in. Before I go on, I believe that transgender individuals serving openly in the military have little or no effect on overall mission readiness. The bottom line is, I don't care whether or not you're LGBTQ. The mission is the mission, and if it can be executed effectively, it does not matter who you are. Most soldiers broadly agree with this statement. Having said that, the transgender issue is uniquely polarizing. The transgender Army policy described below is very unpopular in my unit. I'm not sure if this is because my unit is based in a very conservative state or if this reflects the prevailing attitude of the Army. Either way, trans rights will be for the foreseeable future be intertwined, here we go, with Chelsea Manning. So this is not, I'm going to pause it right here because I know, again, Chelsea Manning, who's out here on Twitter, who was a loud part of the conversation yesterday, is living her life. She is now pardoned. She's out. But let's separate the person for right now. Let's separate the boat that is Chelsea Manning and focus on the wake that was left, because that's what he's talking about. So let's all take a deep breath and go further into this email. Despite where you stand on any of the issues surrounding the case, it's difficult to defend somebody who has violated the sacrosanct concept of OPSEC. You just don't dump that much classified info after swearing to keep it secret. When evaluating her decision-making process, I tend to compartmentalize the transgender angle of the story from the actual violations of the UCMJ, the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Most soldiers I've met evaluate Manning's case with much less subtlety than me and tend to refer to her when the topic of transgender rights in the Army comes up. The Army recently issued an official memo dated October 7, 2016, outlining that transgender soldiers may serve openly and outline the process of transitioning while serving. Last month, we had a briefing on the memo from our command team. I won't get into the fine details of it, but the main points are as follows. Treat all soldiers with dignity and respect. If a soldier wishes to undergo a transition, they must get brigade-level consent. If you are an average soldier, your brigade commander is typically a colonel who is 4 layers of command above you. Lieutenant, captain, colonel, colonel. A medical diagnosis by an Army doctor is required to undergo transition and or to officially change your gender in your military paperwork. I am far from an authority on this, but this memo pretty much covers it. With President Trump's most recent tweets, however, the policy is now called into question. I'm sure there are a handful of currently transitioning soldiers whose lives were made a little bit more difficult by these tweets. However, I don't believe the Army's current policy affects me or my unit, nor will it likely affect my unit in the future. There aren't droves of transgendered people enlisting. Moving forward, I hope that the President uses a more transitional and less chaotic means of communicating policy. When orders are issued via tweet, it becomes very difficult to enforce current and active policy. So there we go. What I found interesting about that is not to explain why people might cloak a antiquated worldview by blaming it on Chelsea Manning. It's not what I'm saying. My point is that for us, many people latch onto the Chelsea Manning issue for a lot of different issues. You know, government overreach, military overreach, criticism of the Bush administration, the fact that she was a very public prisoner, that she had connections to certain elements of online society. There's a generational divide on it. And on top of all of it, that she went into holding as Bradley and left Chelsea. That's an element of it. And whereas we have found these other hooks, that email kind of struck me because for people who are in active military, while they might also have those hooks, the biggest hook is she sold us out. Or put far more crudely than that, most likely. And if the first thing he says is, before even outlining the transgendered stuff, is that her name gets brought up before anything else, then I think it is on some level indicative of at least the thinking. I'm not defending it, but again, it helps to understand. All right, folks, if you want to email us, it is justinrobertyoung@gmail.com. Again, justinrobertyoung@gmail.com. No, stop it. theyoungamerican@gmail.com. I'm an idiot. theyoungamerican@gmail.com. 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 That is where you can email this show. Music, of course, has been provided by Valesco and Trop Killers. ActionNewsGame.com. Again, ActionNewsGame.com. Go there right now. Follow me at Justin R. Young everywhere on social media and download archived episodes of this show at bonerwars.com. Follow me on twitch.tv/Justin R. Young. That about wraps it up for this show. Some shows talk about politics. Others talk about politics. Still more. They talk about politics. Is the only one that talks about all three. See you later.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.